Hi everyone. We have a special guest with us today, but before I introduce her, I'd like to introduce the topic that she's going to discuss. 2 or 3 years ago, some of us here at Rothwell were talking about what we could do for Rothwell and what Rothwell could do for the community. We began thinking about Rothwell's assets, and the lawn on the west side of the church kept coming up. Dick Bullhorn, wearing his finance and property hat, said that all we do is mow that lawn every week from early spring to late fall. He wondered if we could make better use of that lawn and redirect the efforts of our custodian to higher priority needs. The idea of a community garden was suggested, but who could take the lead and transform that lawn into a garden? Reverend Mike mentioned that he had met someone on Facebook who might be interested. And that brings me to our guest today. Her name is Jade Byrne, and she is a resident of Beacon Hill North. Jade was the person Reverend Mike had met on Facebook. Jade, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Cam.
To start with, Jade, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Cam, I grew up in South Africa, born, and came to Canada in 2016. Our family started in Saskatchewan, from Saskatoon, Meadow Lake, Regina, and all in 3 years. Now we have arrived in Ottawa last year, and this is now our base. We don't want to move again, and it was time to set up and connect with everyone, and the best way was through a community garden. So after traveling quite a bit, we decided the quickest way would be to meet people, get settled. And that's how the thought of a community garden started.
Good. How did you become involved in the garden at Rothwell?
It was literally just a single thought that I put onto Facebook, and there was such a big response that we had to go through with it. And Reverend Mark contacted me and said there was a piece of land that was available, and could we do something? And we managed to get some funding, and soon it became a garden. It's very quick.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now you spearheaded the development of the garden, but you didn't do it alone. Who else was involved?
Wow, we had so many people. There must have been about 30 people, all found through Facebook, through the church, through the community. Just Food helped us with funding. Erin from the Gloucester Emergency Food Cupboard was involved. And literally, people just contacted us and said, how can we help? So we had people collecting seedlings that were donated, soil that was donated. So many people. Definitely a team effort.
Isn't it wonderful that so many people responded so well to the idea? I think I note in your answer you mentioned Just Food, and if I'm not mistaken, they provided some startup funding for the garden. This is an organization, Just Food, that helps develop community gardens in the Ottawa area.
Yes.
And you also mentioned the Gloucester Emergency Food Cupboard. I think that's important because the food cupboard has been a long-standing partner of Rothwell, so it's good that we can collaborate with them in another way.
What was quite impressive is we started weighing all the donated stuff straight away, and we donated easily 80 kilos of food to them, and that was a variety of tomatoes, lettuce, kale, green beans, yellow beans. It was quite a variety.
80 kilos. 80 kilos of food.
Yes.
Fresh food.
Fresh food.
That's really something.
Very, very impressed. And again, we had different people watering every day. The involvement was impressive. It's completely a team effort. Community was impressive.
Very good. It's especially impressive, I think, considering that we were just getting started on sort of a trial basis in the spring, and who knew where it was going to go? So it appears to have been a smashing success.
Very much so, especially throwing COVID in and having to develop ideas on how to garden safely. It was interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Right, COVID was a complicating factor for sure.
Yes.
Now, you've mentioned the 80 kilos of food that were donated to the food cupboard. Were there any other highlights in your mind from the gardening season?
Highlights definitely is, again, community involvement. And it spread further than just locally Beacon Hill, because the plants that were donated were from Greta's, and that was probably 90% of what we grew. So that was free. Literally, community involvement to me was so impressive. Wherever there was a need, before there was even a need, there was always somebody available and willing to do something. So that was the biggest highlight.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Having that many people rally around the idea and make it work is worth mentioning. If you were to look ahead to the next gardening season, what would you like to do differently?
Differently, we definitely want to move away from renting. We want to move towards renting the plots out to individuals. So because we started so late, we were halfway through the season already, so there wasn't much time to do that this year. But the original idea was to rent them out individually. So my thought would be to get more garden beds, more people involved, still donating what we can, and having individuals involved to grow their own food.
Good idea. And maybe we can interest a few Rothwellers in joining the group next year.
It would be lovely.
Having their own plots. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate all your involvement, your leadership in the development of the garden. And I think this fits very nicely with what Rothwell was hoping for, that we could use what we have somehow to benefit the community. And this is a perfect example of that. And before we wrap up, I think I should congratulate you on your successful completion of the Ontario Food Safe Handling Certificate Program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jade, for all that you've done to get this garden started.
And thank you to you for letting us use the space, Reverend Mark, as well. Thank you.
Great.
Here are just a few scenes from our garden.
The Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and the rain and the apple seed. The Lord is good to me, and every seed that grows shall grow into a tree. And one day soon there'll be apples there for everyone in the world to share.
A wise person once said, when you dream, dream big. Who knows what it might become?